Well, Dave, we'll turn it to you, and then let me know, and I'll flick the switches for you.
Okay, next. So we'll start off in Canada. And back in '97, they issued this folder which contained a sheet of rather ghostly stamps, which you can see peering out through the windows. If we go to the next slide, we'll see the sheet of stamps.
Okay.
Okay, so this doesn't say Halloween, but it clearly is aimed at it. Okay, next. Then starting in 2014, Canada did a 3-year series of little souvenir sheets that looked like this one. Now they all have a holographic overlay on the stamps, which gives them kind of a ghostly image, but that doesn't really work on the scanner. So I only included this one, but they show different legends of ghosts and so on that are around Canada. So the next one shows a postcard of one of them. This is supposedly is in Fort George in Ontario, that you can still see these people wandering around.
Dave, did they make a lot of postcards, Canada postcards, postal cards or whatever of their stamps in Canada?
They were doing for a while back then. I don't think they're doing as much now, but for example, this issue, there were 5 different stamps and they had 5 postcards.
Okay, yeah.
And as you see, it's actually printed stationary because it has that's not one of the stamps. It's the same design, but it's actually printed onto the postcard.
All right. Okay.
Or postal card, I suppose I should say.
Okay. Ready?
Ready. And what really surprised me when I found this is that France would celebrate Halloween. Last I knew, Halloween was not a French word. As I kind of described in my little article there, Halloween comes from All Hallows Evening. And is an English.
After actually being in the country, they do celebrate it here.
Yes, that's clear. I can remember there was a time when they would have fits if a Frenchman used an English word, like le weekend, when that started becoming popular, that members of the Academy in France were horrified. But I guess Halloween comes along. Now the 4 figures that are there have perforations around them, so you could punch them out and use them on a letter, or well, not that they're stamps, but to decorate something. So next one is.
Again, those are semi-postal.
Those are stamps.
2 values. No, the pumpkins.
No, that was the transition period between euros and francs.
Okay.
Yeah,
And,
they put
and
both
so the
numbers on.
denomination is expressed in both currencies.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
All
francs
right.
and euros.
Yeah.
So next one. So this one, a kind friend gave me this, and it shows that someone actually used those stamps. So they weren't just made for collectors, although this was probably a collector that mailed it to my friend. So, and then a couple years later, they issued this stamp, which again, another Halloween thing, and with pumpkins and all that, which again, pumpkins are actually native to North America. So what they've got to do with European customs is a whole nother thing. But supposedly, the idea of jack-o'-lanterns came from, at one point in Europe, they carved out turnips and put a candle in to use as a lantern. I would think carving out a turnip would be a whole lot more difficult than carving out a pumpkin. So then Belgium also got into this the same year. And also, they even went one step further with their English use, with saying Happy Halloween. So they have two languages in Belgium of, Flemish and French, of which Happy Halloween is neither. The next one. So Austria also, they don't say Halloween, but they've come up with all the symbols. Pumpkins and witches and an owl, which I guess is a sort of a bat. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, well, there are some bats there. But, so next, and then Austria also issued this souvenir sheet with a Halloween scene. There are 4 stamps in the sheet. This is die cut. They're self-adhesive, so it's really tough to see the die cuts, but they're actually arranged like a jigsaw puzzle. Or the stamps are cut out the shape of jigsaw puzzle pieces.
And there's 4 of them.
Yep.
4 big ones. Okay. I can see the outer, but not in the middle. Okay.
Next. And again, this doesn't say Halloween, but since it was issued in the fall and it's Count Dracula with a bat, it's probably safe to say that was the motivating influence behind it. Next. And Olin got into the act as well. Now this was issue was just titled Bats, but given that they're rather cartoonish looking bats, I suspect that it's more a Halloween sort of issue than it is anything scientific about bats. Now this one, you could say maybe it is scientific, because they do give you the Latin names for the different species, but I figured any stamp from Romania that showed bats had to have some relation to Halloween, or at least to Dracula.
Dave, the previous one, the Ireland one, is part of a joint issue for the Scandinavian countries. They have the post horn in the middle, down in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a series on northern European mammals. And Ireland chose to use a bat in that series.
Okay, well, it looks more like a cartoon to me.
It is, but
I'm not sure the point of the.
Sorry,
I'm not sure the point of the clock face there either, but
I don't know, but it was rather a strange design to go with mammals of northern Europe.
yes. Well, of course, one of the good things about stamp collecting is you can pick and choose what you want to collect. There was a fellow who made an exhibit of Harry Potter and eventually published a book containing his exhibit. And he basically went, if he had a page of owl stamps with owls on them, simply because Harry Potter had an owl as a pet. But these stamps had nothing to do with Harry Potter per se, they just showed an owl. Now you can kind of go crazy with that. And maybe to some extent I'm doing that here, but as I say, you can't pick and choose whatever, what you want. So next one. So Great Britain has never done a specific Halloween thing, but here they showed famous monsters. And we tend to associate them with Halloween, even if that's a little bit loose. But I kind of thought this was amusing because you have garlic canceling Dracula. So we get to the United States. The first nominal Halloween issue of the US was this one, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is not really a Halloween story, but it's a ghost, kind of a ghost story, and it tends to be told around Halloween. So here are 3 examples. The upper left copy is, the colors are pretty well registered. The upper right copy, the black is shifted. And there's kind of a smaller black shift in the plate block. One thing you can tell with EFO stamps, you can kind of reverse engineer how things are made. And if you look at Ichabod Crane on the horse, you can see that in the 2 error stamps, there's orange poking through him. You might have thought, looking at the normal stamp, that Ichabod and his horse were all solid black, but in fact they're not. They're just essentially outlined, and it's the dark blue is what's inside them. So when the black was shifted, some of that, the dark blue got replaced by the orange.
Were there many of these?
No. This is a relatively uncommon error.
Okay.
And then the US also issued one of classic monsters, kind of the same comment as on the GB stamps. These are specifically from movies, but I figured I'd include it because, as I say, a lot of people dress up as these monsters for Halloween costumes. So next one. And then we come back to the pumpkins, which I thought was a kind of a nice design for Halloween stamp, now that we're really getting into Halloween stamps. I don't know that sending Halloween cards is such a big deal, but evidently the Postal Service thinks we need a special stamp for the holiday. So next one. And this is one of my favorites. Unfortunately, the holographic part of the stamp does not reproduce real well in a scan. So I decided to do the first day cover instead, because I suspected if I tried to scan the sheet of stamps, it would just come out black. So a little bit of postal history here. That this is said to be, or could be, a jack-o'-lantern. Could also just simply be a smiling face, but we'll say it's for our purposes, it's a jack-o'-lantern cancel from 1872. These are closer to looking like jack-o'-lanterns from the mid-1890s. So there are 3 examples. It gets a bit more common in this time period. Although these aren't all that easy to find. They're not that common. So, next. There was a window in the 1930s where we went back to having kind of, shall we say, homemade cancellation devices. I read something about it, and I didn't go into it in great detail, but apparently there was some regulation about canceling registered mail that allowed postmasters to make up their own canceling devices. And so for a while they did, until it was suppressed. But for example, this one was only used for 1 day. So next one. Some more modern things. We do get special cancellations now for Halloween in various communities. This one I was a little bit surprised. It came from Sinking Spring, which.
Yay.
Next one. This is quite a big cancel from a town in New York, and also ties in with stamp collecting. So Next one. And there's a pair that came from a stamp show on the 2 different days of the show in White Plains, New York. Next. And while this is for stamp collecting month and not for Halloween, but they both happen in October. And of course, spiders and spider webs are kind of associated with Halloween. So I figured, what the heck? Besides that, it's a really creepy stamp, in my opinion. Next one. So actually another Pennsylvania post office that had a Halloween cancel. Another big one. Next. This one, and Anoka, Minnesota, as they say on the council, considers themselves a Halloween capital of the world. I'm not quite sure why, but when they send it, I generally send them an envelope to send the special cancel back to me so it doesn't get over canceled in the mail. They sent both of my envelopes back in a penalty envelope that the post office supplied and put this orange cancel on, which I hadn't even realized they were doing. Although I guess the reason was it's the Orange Day Parade. It doesn't mention Halloween, but given that it's on October 29th and it shows a jack-o'-lantern, that probably has something to do with Halloween. But I thought it was rather nice of them to do that for me. And then after Halloween ends, we look forward to Thanksgiving. I don't have enough to make up a program all on Thanksgiving, but I wanted to include this one simply because of the name of the post office. So I had never heard of Turkey City, Pennsylvania before finding this cover. But interestingly, the post office is still operational. And by the way, Turkey City is in Clarion County.
All right.
So way out in the boonies of Pennsylvania.
And you're building a Thanksgiving collection too?
Not really.
Okay. Let's try to schedule for next year.
Although from the 20s and 30s, there are a fair number of Thanksgiving cancellations.
Yeah.
And that's the end.
That's it. Well, thank you, Dave. I'll give you one of our silent cancels. And very good. Questions, people? You know the one, I think you showed the cover with the holographic, the set of 4 from 2019. That's a favorite. This is such a beautiful design.
Yeah, and interesting because of the holographic effects, I think.
Yeah, that's this one here.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a real nice one when you see them in person. Yep.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Am I being heard? I'm not sure.
You're good. Yep, you're good. You're good, Bob.
Okay. Dave, my wife and I, Kathy, who's also on, we lived in Europe from 1974 to 1984 and in Britain. And at that time, and I traveled a lot, I never saw anything related to Halloween going on in Europe. We moved back to Brussels, or moved to Brussels in 1993, and we were amazed. Halloween just seemed to be all over the continent as well as in Britain. And in that period of about 9 years, for some reason, Halloween just really took off and became a very popular thing. And costume parties and things like that were very much in vogue. by the mid 1990s, whereas up to the mid 1980s, we hadn't seen anything related to Halloween.
Did they do door to door trick or treating?
Kathy, maybe Kathy can answer that better than I, because I traveled so much.
Yeah.
Kathy would be the.
No, we would have to arrange for my girls to go trick or treating. I would have to tell people they were coming, and
Okay.
perhaps even provide the treats.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Yeah.
I had a theory that when we came back to Brussels, that there's such a length before the end of summer and Christmas that Halloween fills a nice commercial gap. Store windows, decorating, just a kind of fun break. And they don't have Thanksgiving like we do in November. So it filled a void that I think certainly stores and people, and obviously the public enjoyed getting involved in.
Yeah.
So a lot of costumes then too for the kids.
When we were in England, they would dress up as witches. Witches were the only costume. But then I didn't have our girls with us when we were in Brussels, and it was more costume parties. And I know I gave a book of Halloween costumes to a young Austrian friend, and she was going to dress up like a one night stand.
It's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. But that was an American book. But I think they were just starting to get into it. Certainly the bats and the ghosts and the witches. Witches was the big thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
I can concur that growing up in England, and I moved here in '84, there was nothing, no trick or treating or anything like that. It was when I came over here and people were telling me, well, you've got candy for Halloween, don't you? And I'm going, what? What? It was a brand new thing for me.
The English have the benefit of remember the 5th of November,
Oh, yeah.
well, which is a huge thing in England. I mean, there are parties, bonfire parties all over the place. And I remember getting off the train, and there would be always boys there with asking for a penny for the guy, for Guy Fawkes. And so in Britain, or in England at least, they did have something around that time to celebrate, and they did. They really did.
Yeah. You made a straw effigy of stuffed a shirt and pants and with the straw, and went round to the neighbors asking for a penny for the guy. And then on November the 5th, that was about a week before. And then on November the 5th, there were bonfires everywhere, and then we burnt the effigy.
Yeah.
What did you do with the penny?
Keep it.
Yeah.
It was a legitimate way of begging.
I thought it was for fireworks on Guy Fawkes night.
Well, yeah, that's where we said the money was going, but
Very good. Well,
Jim
thanks for
here.
sharing. Yeah.
Could that have been a pickup on the U.S. military overseas? Because I know in '65 when I was in Berlin, I had taken a trip down to Bad Nauheim where my uncle was stationed, and in the compound where all the families lived, American families, we celebrated Halloween there. And just like in the States, and when I was over in Brussels back in 1983, setting up the Wall Street Journal over there, some of the clubs we would go to that were run by Americans, we wore costumes and celebrated Halloween there. And the people the locals enjoy it because they would join in. But it wasn't big like apparently it is now with the stamps.
Well, thank you,
I'm
Jim.
just saying something that spread.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Any reason for a party is good, any country.
Especially on a military base.
What's that?
Especially on a military base
Oh, yeah.
where they have the package store.
Oh,
You figure if they're selling cartons of cigarettes for $2, you wonder what a fifth of whiskey would go for. Other questions, comments, people, on Halloween?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Mhm.
Halloween's become a very big deal in Tokyo at the Shibuya Crossing, which is an intersection known as the Scramble on October the 31st. It just seems like everybody in Tokyo is dressed to the hilts in costumes. You can't shoehorn anybody else into that intersection.
Wow, it's interesting.
It's become a big deal over there for some reason.
You like, I think Mike was saying, and Jim, any excuse to celebrate.
Yes.
and plus that marketing,
Yeah.
anytime they can sell something else.
Yeah. Other comments, questions?
A question about the 1872 jack-o'-lantern cancel.
Okay, let's go to that.
Is that around the time of all the other fancy cancels that came out?
Yes.
Yeah.
There- You can find, and even a bit earlier, back to just after the Civil War, you can find mostly geometric designs, but there are some pictorial designs. There's, one of the more famous ones is a kicking mule that can be fairly expensive to find. For some reason, the postmaster in Waterbury, Connecticut, made up a lot of different designs, mostly geometric. In
Is
many
that where
cases,
most of them came from?
well, most of these were made locally, probably made by the postmaster himself. At first, they were carved on the end of a piece of a cork. So you save the cork out of your wine bottle, and you can carve a design in the end and use it as a stamp. But they didn't last very long, and so that you were continually having to carve a new one. So, given examples of a specific design tend not to be very common. You get multiple designs from the same post office. Now, a little bit later, I think they got into, some people were making metal cancels with these geometric designs. New York, there's the New York foreign mail cancels, which are, a tremendous array of geometric designs. But they lasted from, I'd say, roughly just post-Civil War up until the 1890s.
Okay.
And they kind of got phased out by more standardized, especially when they went to machine cancels. That kind of standardized things.
It's pretty neat you found one that old that was related to Halloween in some way.
Yeah, you could argue the Halloween connection with this one because the cancel was done in March.
Yeah.
So, but I'll just say that it probably was just left over from October and leave it at that.
You also have Skull and Crossbones and the Flying Witch, which I have upstairs.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, we could use a good program one day on fancy cancels because I think they're very fascinating. When they went from cork because of the not being practical, they'd use them like an end piece in wood.
Oh, some of them, yeah, some of them would carve it in wood.
Mhm.
I mean, it's obviously easier to carve in cork. So it probably depended on your skill level, and if someone was a really good whittler, they would do it in wood. And I think eventually some people were selling metal ones,
Mhm, mhm.
but I'm not really an expert in that area.
Yeah, well, good, thank you. A lot of interesting things have come out of the presentation on the celebration of Halloween, fancy cancels, different customs around the world. For very interesting. Okay, then anything else before moving on? Okay, and we will move then to I'll stop screen sharing this. We'll move to show and tell. And while we're at it, let's see. I will show the one from Stanley Jones, which he said he calls his, let's see, maybe I can, no. Okay. Can you see this one?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is from Stanley Jones. He's going to be talking on Christmas seals. And as you notice, it really is a Christmas seal, Christmas stamp club. But he also said, well, look at the date, October 31st, 1968. And actually, I remember exactly what I was doing that day because I was in college. And we went and kind of hung around the cemetery that night. And then we got in the car, got about 6 or 7 people in my little Mustang. And they had a radio broadcast of the War of the Worlds, the Orson Welles thing. And it was just great. So it was kind of fun to see the date, and you can link to it. But with this, you have that block of 4 of 1968. And Stanley collects these, and he also looks for what are known as EKUs, earliest known use or date of use. And that's a collecting area also in itself that people use. So a stamp might be issued on March 1st, but they can sneak out the back door, and you might find one, in late February. And so many of the catalogs will also list the earliest known use. So it either has to have the stamp on it with a full cancel or usually on cover. But what he said about this is he wrote this up in one of the journals as an EKU because they celebrated it later. But he said, that's October 31st. And he then got a return back from what's known as a Christmas Seal and Charity Stamp Society. And they said they wouldn't recognize it because it was a prepared cover. And I think some of us remember the discussion we had, Al Schraub led it on, what's a prepared cover, a philatelic cover, and so forth. And so they didn't recognize it. And as he said, this one, it went through the mail. And the EKU was certainly earlier than the one by the Christmas Seal Society. So as we go to the second one, where he kind of gets his back up, and he's saying there's the official kind of the launch date of November 15th, which is a full 15 days later than the one he found. And he said, do we cancel all these? These were certainly prepared. He said most of the Christmas covers that you find don't even see the mail stream. They're largely handed back, or you purchase them and they go in your first day cover album. But as he said with this, this was one of his complaints. And then Bob was sharing with Bob Roof, who checked his brand new 21s Specialized, and they had listed in that, based on Stanley's earlier research, the 31 October 68 EKU date. So he kind of felt vindicated. But you can see again here that you have the stamp date and kind of the official launch. And then you have this one here, which is on 31st October, which is 15 days earlier. So he has probably about maybe a dozen or so earliest known uses of Christmas seals. And obviously they have to be tied with a cancel for that. So that's from Stanley. We're looking forward to him talking about his Christmas seal, exhibits and things. And I have his PowerPoint, and it's really going to be wonderful. I think it will launch us quite nicely into the holiday spirit, as tonight did with our Halloween presentation. Okay, so I'll stop sharing that.
Well, I would be curious to see what the society's definition of a prepared cover is, because that seems to be really a wishy-washy.
Yeah, it was, he said what they see is prepared.
I mean, you could argue that any cover that has a Christmas seal on is prepared, because someone has to consciously put the Christmas seal on it.
Yeah.
And it's not something you have to do to mail a letter, so it's something that you prepare. Now, I'd make another point that back in the days before machine cancels, when postal clerks would hand cancel all the mail, the postal regulations were that they were not to cancel anything that was not a stamp. So they could not cancel Christmas seals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not all of them followed the rules, and you can find early Christmas seals on covers that are canceled or tied, at least. But you can also find covers where the clerk very carefully avoided touching the Christmas seal.
Yeah, weren't they supposed to go on the back at first of the cover, the envelope?
Yeah, I'm not sure but they, at least on the other side of the envelope, on the other end of the envelope.
Yeah. Well, I said, this is nice. You have them both tied with the same cancel. Well, good. Well, thank you. Other comments on this one, or anything on philatelic covers?
Just a comment about tying the stamp with a postmark. I went to the post office today and mailed something, and I frequently take them in to get them hand stamped or hand postmarked at the post office. One of the items was going to Barbara Buchanan with my dues, and of course I put some special stamps on there and wanted them to be properly postmarked. But I had another item there, and it was a young clerk that I had never seen before, and this one I really didn't care about. It was paying a bill, and he postmarked it, but the postmark didn't touch the stamp, which was interesting. I'd never seen any post office employee postmark the envelope but not the stamp.
Yeah, well, we leave it at that, right?
Yes.
Well, it wouldn't apply to your case probably, but if it was a stamped envelope, the postal regulation is that you merely have to apply the cancel somewhere on the envelope. Doesn't have to touch the colored indicia.
I didn't know that.
Which is why you cannot cut out an uncanceled indicium and reuse it. Because since it didn't actually have to be canceled when it was used, they won't accept cutouts.
That's for the US, right? Because
that's just in the US.
In England is different.
Yes. Certainly for a long time. I'm not sure right now what the rule is, but back certainly in Victorian times, they had to cancel the indicium itself, and you could cut out the indicium and glue it onto another envelope if you wanted to, if it was an unused one.
Also in Switzerland, for example, they couldn't reuse the indicium, I'm guessing, because there are lots of wrappers where the indicium is not cancelled. It's cancelled, the date stamp is somewhere else. So it's...
Okay. Well, I will stop this share. And we will get back to the group here. I have one more to share from Jim, and I'll show it and he can share it. And I think we might need Larry's help. So we put a note in there. So you ready, Larry? What do we have? Who has anything to share with us tonight?
Paul, I sent you a postcard, a New Zealand postcard, and I can put it up on the screen here.
Okay.
Well, that did not work. Ah, okay. Are you seeing that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get this.
Yeah, I think I gave you 3 different wrong opinions, so I'd like to see what people say.
Okay, this was a postcard that was given to me in the past month. And as you can easily see on the postmark here, it was postmarked in Auckland, New Zealand on the 5th of December, 2002. And it clearly came from New Zealand because on the other side, it has some sheep and New Zealand written across it. However, this stamp, I went looking for it in Scots. It was interesting because no place on this stamp does it say New Zealand. And when I went looking in Scots, everything, all the New Zealand stamps, going back to the very early years, all say New Zealand on them. And I'm just curious if anybody knows anything what this is. The theme on the stamp, I believe, is related to the Lord of the Rings, because here it talks about Middle Earth, and the Lord of the Rings was filmed in New Zealand, and this is very difficult to see, but I believe this is part of the area where they did some of the filming. And I don't know if you can see here, there's a DX on it, and it does say mail on it, and there's a blue wavy postmark which does go across all the across the stamp, tying it to the cover. Up here it does say delivered to you by New Zealand Auckland Mail Service Center. I'm curious if this was some sort of private mailing service that was available in New England, but it was mailed to the United States. And if you look at the bottom here, this looks like the barcoding that they put on stamps on mail associated with the zip code. So if anybody has any insight into what this stamp is and why is it by the way, the amount, $1.50 up here, to me seems about right for that period for an international postcard being mailed from New Zealand to the United States. The New Zealand dollar is less than the US dollar. I'm not sure now. It used to be around 70 to 75 cents. A $1 New Zealand was around 70 to 75 cents US. So I don't know. I'd appreciate any insight anybody may have into what the background, not the background, but what is this stamp? And was it issued by the postal? I don't think it was issued by the Postal Authority. It's not listed and it doesn't say New Zealand on it.
Well, like the U.S. Postal Service was created to replace the post office and basically get it out of the government in theory. And because Great Britain has done something similar with Royal Mail or the post office, I guess I should say. But New Zealand went one whole step farther and they said, not only are we going to kick New Zealand Post out of the government, we're going to basically open it all up to competition. So that several organizations became competitors in mailing. Now, I believe you get into an issue with international mail on that. And that's probably why it says it was delivered to you by New Zealand, probably says New Zealand Post, I would guess. Somehow international mail was transferred and this private company probably had to pay a fee to the New Zealand Post to send it on its way, but domestic mail would have been handled entirely by these other companies. Now, the way you tell the New Zealand Post stamps now is that they have a little tiny fern in one corner of the stamp, which is the fern being a symbol of New Zealand. And I'm not sure that some of them, that they all necessarily say New Zealand, but they would have the fern on, if the fern leaf, if it was the official New Zealand Post issue.
Okay, Dave, do you know, are there any catalogs or anything that cover these, what I guess are a form of private company posts?
I don't know. I was collecting New Zealand new issues back in the 1990s, but I kind of gave it up, and that was before they went to the private companies. So I don't really, I've never had much to do with it, and don't know. I would assume there probably is, but I couldn't tell you how to find it.
Okay.
But that stamp, if it came to the United States, if that postcard came to the United States, wouldn't the stamp have to be UPU recognized?
Well, yeah, I think that's why that stamp, that marking on there says delivered to you by New Zealand, something. Probably, I assume New Zealand Post is an attempt to cover that.
Yeah, I know Great Britain did something similar, and I know in the case of Great Britain for international mail that the private companies did give it to Royal Mail, who then forwarded on, and it would then, in the case of US, go to USPS. So I
Yes,
think,
but what would the postage be like? Would it be a stamp?
well, I don't know about the UPU recognitions, but since so many companies are doing this and in Europe anyway, are forced to do this by European Union rules, that there must be a clause in there that if it has a marking or some other reason so the destination country knows that it was handled by a legitimate post office, even if it has a private stamp on it. I mean, we have our private stamps, stamps.com and others that you can use to create a stamp and put it on a letter and mail it.
But that is different because that is really by authority of the US Postal Service, right? They have an agreement with the USPS, probably, I'm guessing. They are not in the stamp, in the delivery business. They are just selling you the postage on behalf of the USPS.
Well, that's true. There is a distinction there.
Yeah, actually, I just looked on eBay, and there's a lot of stamps with the DX, and it's noted as a private courier. So it looks like it's sanctioned by the New Zealand Post Office, but there's quite a number of different stamps with the DX logo on them. And
many things. One thing I did notice, and I really didn't pull out, this down here looks like a chevron that's rotated about 90 degrees. And then it's hard to see here, but that does say mail on it. And it does look like it's an overprint over it. I wonder if that was something may have been applied by the Postal Service for going international. I don't know, but it does look like an overprint of some sort. Well, many thanks.
Yes. Could if that's an overprint, does it look like it could be part of that square with a rectangle with the 7 killer bars? Or would it be a?
Well, it would be a multicolored postmark then.
Yeah.
Not
practical then.
Yeah, I don't know how common multicolored postmarks were back 20 years ago. I know they are now, but
because that'd almost be a 2-step process.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Other comments on Bob's postcard?
I appreciate it. Many thanks.
Well, thank you for sharing it. I think we got some good discussion on that tonight. Okay, good. What else do we have for show and tell? Who has something?
I have something in the way of also a something unusual stamp, if I may.
Uh-huh.
So the other day I got this addressed to me, came from the UK, came from somebody I know who is an experienced philatelist, and yet something stood out to me about the stamps, and I looked at them, and the first thing that struck me was the shade doesn't look quite right. And then I went to look at the iridescent overprint. The matrons, as we've talked about sometimes, now have a hard to see overprint, and I'll show you in a minute. And that kind of blew me away what it was. So I started to do a little research. I haven't been really following matrons closely lately. And to my surprise, this turned out to be a forgery. So let me, I didn't make slides, so I have to stop share and then bring up a new image here. So what I did here was, here's a genuine stamp, and here are the three on that envelope. And you can see that these forgeries are a brighter shade of red, maybe a little more orange. So that was one giveaway. What I learned secondly, after doing research, is you'll notice the Queen's head is in a different position. The crown is much closer to the edge of the stamp on this forgery than on the real stamp. And there are some other subtle differences.
The ST for first is totally different.
That's true. The thickness is.
Thickness and the style, the font style looks totally different.
And the elliptical perforations are different. See, this has a straight edge on it, and this is all curved. The legitimate ones are all curved.
The detail on the crown is very distinct on the real one, while the other ones, it's kind of blurred in there.
Right. So there are a lot of collectors that document the forgeries. So this page is from the Norfeld blog, where he shows one of the stamps and took the photograph that shows the overprint. And if you look at every other row, this top row, the third row, the fifth row, these are mirror image letters.
Mm-hmm.
These are backwards. So whoever did the forgery, the theory that someone offered when I was reading about it is someone in the UK was trying to say about something being reversed, and whoever forged it, which presumably was probably in Asia somewhere, misunderstood that and reversed every other line of the iridescent overprint. And so this is what the stamps on my cover look like as well.
Mm.
So I contacted the person who sent it to me, who obviously had no idea that they had purchased forged stamps, probably from a shop in the town somewhere, and was very glad to find out from me that they shouldn't use these anymore.
You probably
Also-
can sell them for more.
I was at APS summer session a few years ago, and one of the speakers was a retired postal inspector. As he said, we were the mailman who carry a gun and a badge, but showed some examples and passed them around. And it was the kind of the convertible booklets of the flag over something, and you could not tell the difference from that and the real one. He said the only way to tell was the fluorescent markings. You know, that's the whole thing right there.
Yeah.
The tagging. That's the only way you can tell. And once the forgers, you know, get our tagging process, then it's going to be a lot tougher game.
So, well, first of all,
I'm sorry, Larry, I was just going to ask, also, aren't the
Didn't
first class and second class stamps only supposed to be used within Britain?
no, they're valid everywhere.
Oh, they are. Whereas our forever stamps are only supposed to be used domestically, I believe.
No.
No?
Well, they can be used.
Just in the beginning. Just in the beginning, they were.
Yeah, it took a few
Oh, okay.
years for the UPU to recognize them. So I actually have a cover from Great Britain that was sent using the non-denominated stamps and reached me before the international mail was allowed, but that was in the late 1990s. So, I mean, every country is now, not every, but almost every country is doing non-denominated stamps. So, but the other thing, Paul, I wanted to mention, I believe at least the compound that Britain uses for its phosphorescent overprint is a controlled compound. So forgers can't buy it. And so far, no forgery exhibits the phosphorescence that the genuine stamps do. But what postal clerk, I mean, I guess a postal clerk could have a little UV light and if they were handed this thing, but most of them I'm sure are just dropped in a mailbox.
Yeah, yeah. Like Dave Hunt said, they don't over there. They don't cancel second class mail.
British don't cancel a lot of mail.
Yeah,
but this one was hand canceled. Maybe my correspondent took them to the post office to be canceled. I don't know.
Okay, I get a chat from Raj, a good conference on the New Zealand DX stamps. And
they have given good
yeah,
reference. It's about the DX company itself, the
Yes.
stamps.
Yeah, Paul, I found similar information to what she found, that they are a private post company and they're still in operation.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. I will I'll put this chat in the newsletter. So if anybody wants to follow it up. Let's see, let me get that so we'll have that in there. So thank you both.
On their
Other,
website, they have a PDF basically that has all their stamps. Looks like.
Okay. Other show and tells?
Oh, you
I
want to
don't
bring up
have
that picture?
Oh. Close this one down.
Oh, I sent you an email with some
Yeah.
pictures on there.
Okay. You just sent it to me?
Yeah, just before the meeting started.
Okay. Let's see if I can get my email up. Okay, the Reading cover. Okay.
I muted myself, yes.
Okay. Now, let's see. Can anybody see this one?
No.
I think not. Okay. What I can do here. See if I don't have to download it and all that. See what I can do quickly.
I'd show it, but it's on a different computer and I can't move it over.
Yeah, no, share.
There we go.
There
Okay,
you
you're
go.
seeing it? Okay, let me just see if I can clean it up a little bit. You can see it now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, Tom, you're on.
Well, I found this at the stamp show in Reading. Wild Bill had it. The graphic on there, the engraving is fantastic.
Yep.
And I just fell in love with it. And I found out it's one of 700,000 that were made in 1897. This one was mailed to a gentleman in, I can't see, Dover, New Jersey. But it was 1917 that he sent it to this guy. So there were other ones floating around. I have no clue who sent this, except for the P.O. box in Manatawny, which is down Douglasville way, off of 422. But there was an interesting sticker. Can you go to the next one that I sent you? The little round sticker in the back.
See if I can do that.
Just hit the next arrow right there. There.
Okay.
That sticker has me stumped. Now go to the next one if I blew it up. Fat baby shoes. So my question is, anybody else ever hear, anybody from the 1917s that's here ever saw that before?
Yeah. I remember Buster Brown.
And I
Yes.
just kind of figured that the guy who sent that cover to his friend in Jersey must have been a dealer for shoes.
Yeah.
And the only and there were, honest to God, I looked this up. There were shoes made back in the day for fat babies. Today,
Okay.
that'd be considered cruel.
Not politically correct, that's for sure.
But I'm also wondering if it's just a wide shoe, a wide work shoe.
For adults.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I couldn't find anything on it.
So we have fat babies and have fat men. Then they call them fuller figures.
Now they call them robust, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. Comments, anybody?
I don't know what they call them, but I'm fat.
Yeah. Very nice. Thank you.
That's it. I just saw that engraving down there, writing it, and I
Yeah.
said, God, it's mine.
Okay. Now I gotta.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay. I'm just getting myself back into things. Great. Take that one out. Okay. Well, I can see some of you, but let's try this.
Have you stopped screen share?
Yeah, I lost all of that. I can try something else for now. Paul, show and tell. Okay.
There you go.
There, I didn't do a
Yeah.
thing. Let's see what I can do on this one. Can you see this?
Nope.
No.
Nothing? Okay. Let's see. Take this. Close this. Okay, try to screen share. Okay, now I think I can do it. We're good?
There we go.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. I just want to show this. I think I might have shown it last time. I know I had similar problems to what we're going through now. But these are the first of the Cinderellas for the Boston show coming up. And I have some extras. So if anybody wants one, just send me an email and I'll send that down to you. Now, this came from Jim from Southwick. And Jim, I'll give it to you.
Sure. I got this at a recent auction. I collect all sorts of airmail covers, and this was for a airmail meeting in this. I probably pronounced it wrong. Rouen, Rouen,
Rouen.
Rouen. But the stamps that show the airplanes on them, I've seen them listed as being a semi-postal, and others just calling them a Cinderella. And there's different varieties of these on some of the covers out there. And all of them have the standard French stamp on it in the upper right. That seemed like that was the postage, the official postage for the covers. And I did I sent Paul a couple close-ups on it. You have the other one, Paul?
I just have this one.
Oh, just that one and
Yep.
and the cancellation on the back
And there- yeah,
where they
that's the
send it to
back stamp.
Luxembourg.
Luxembourg, yeah.
Yep.
Is it
Do you have the cover for the meeting?
didn't turn out. I could barely tell what it is, but that was the show cover, right? For this air show.
Yes.
Yeah, it
And
wasn't a stamp show, but it was an air show, which the stamp people maximized.
actually, they said it was a meeting with aviation because the brochure pointed out that they did bicycles, automobiles, and they had the airplanes where they would fly on the show, plus people could see them, and they were also had advertisement in there for flights to other locations.
Okay.
But I couldn't print the copy out and scan it because it was a copyrighted site
Mm-hmm.
in France. But it was the only information I found. But if anybody has any other information on these particular stamps, I'd appreciate it because I want to know if a lot of the listings say a semi-postal cover, but I couldn't find that in any of the semi-postal Scots books.
That's a lot of postage too. That's 9.5 francs.
Right. And
I don't know what the rate was to Luxembourg from France. If 25 centime would be enough, in 1923.
No, because even ones that were just sent within France had all these variety of stamps on there, plus the 25.
Like it looks, Jim, it looks like it's a set that was issued for that specific air show.
Yeah, at that particular site that I sent the literature out to Paul, and I think Paul or Charlie were going to put it on the website, the linkage. The top three stamps are shown there in a mint condition, but the other three are, I can see them on different covers, but I couldn't find any further information on them.
Yeah.
For that meeting. So
it might have been a fundraiser, for admission to the meeting, that you got the stamps.
Yeah, and if anybody can read French, in the article that's Paul can probably forward it out. So with the links on it, it mentions that people could buy some sort of, I thought it was postcards or something, but it could have been covers like this, but having no knowledge of the French language, it was pretty difficult.
Paul, send it to me. I'll have a crack at it.
Okay. I'll send that link. Yeah.
Yeah, the link had a lot of information on anything for air shows or anything like that in France.
Okay. And speaking of France, Dick Kohlberg or Larry R. Ideas?
I'm pretty sure they're not official in the sense of post office issued. Because
Mhm.
then they would be in the French specialized catalogs, and I've not
Okay,
seen
they're
anything
not,
like
yeah.
that. But the post office obviously did cancel them.
Yeah. Well, I guess now, Dave was saying earlier, they had to cancel, you couldn't cancel something other than a stamp. Now, I guess they can. I heard, I put foreign things on in Cinderellas and they get stamped, even hand stamped. Nobody seems to complain about it. It's either that or they don't know the regs and don't care. But that is a beautiful cover, really is.
Mhm. It's very good.
I would suppose it might be analogous to the Vin Fizz stamp in the United States,
Yeah. Vin Fizz.
which was really a private stamp just used to raise money for the group that was flying the airplane. But
Yeah.
it was sort of recognized by the post office. So it does appear in the Scott catalog.
The Vin Fizz does.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the one balloon mail stamp, which I think is this similar thing. So I know they had these air meets in various places in France, and I think in Germany as well. They're very, very popular at the time. And I suspect this was a way of raising money.
Yeah. The Paris Air Show is still very popular.
Oh,
That's on
yeah.
my son's bucket list one day. Okay. And I'll just show you again the back.
Yeah.
Luxembourg made it just overnight. That's not too bad.
Luxembourg town.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else with show and tell? If not, well, you're thinking about, I'll just show one that I came up with. Let's see. A couple of them. This was on the back of a 29 cover, and it's called the Stamp Trade, was it Directive or something? Stamp Trade Protective Association. Don't know what that is. Maybe a precursor to, it wasn't. The American Stamp Dealers came out in 1914. I don't know about the National Stamp Dealers, but there's some other trade, that's on this Cinderella. Don't know if there's anything there or not. Any idea?
Is that a seal of some sort, or is it?
It's like a Cinderella used as a seal. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. It's enlarged and pixelated, but it's a very attractive one. Just something to show and to pass. And I have let's see. This is a 1929 Scott catalog Cinderella. Again, it was sent to a stamp dealer in New York City. New York, Beaver Street. That's the kind of competitor to, the other one, and in the Pittsburgh area. And they're looking at the different prices for the Scott's catalogs. As you can see, it's $2 with thumb indexed version. $2 for the catalog and $2.50 for the thumb index version. And that's when you could get it all in one volume. Now what do we have? 13 or 14 big volumes in color and large footprint.
Hey, Paul, I just for FYI, I just donated a 1929 Scott catalog to the Reading Club at the Reading Stamp Show.
Okay.
I do not know if anybody bought it. Michael, next to you, she had it on her table.
Believe it did sell.
Did sell.
I think
Yeah,
so.
you guys have a good literature table up at, or I think Pete wheels his truck and brings it down.
It's dwindling. We've been selling a lot, but
I bought stuff over the years. I just put at the end, the historical note is that this is the first month of the Great Depression. So here we are with a registered cover, probably sending a check in for some stamps, payment for stamps. Okay.
Nice use of the electric light coils.
Yeah, yeah. 2, 4, 6, 8, 16 cents, 18, 19 cents, I guess, for the registration and so forth. I don't know those values that well, but it's attractive covers. My grandfather was a stamp dealer, and I have several of his covers, and this was one to him. I don't know if his name is not on it or if his name is underneath the stamps. I don't think it is, but that was his room there. It's one of those places where the dealers had this little small room with a desk and filing cabinet and things like that for selling. He specialized in airmails. Okay, I'll stop sharing this.
Paul, was that in perf vertical? I mean, horizontal in the middle?
In perf on the horizontal. Yeah.
Well, because they're coils.
Coils.
Oh, it's two separate ones. Okay.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah,
laid
one
next to.
one on top
From
of the
here,
other.
it looked like it's one.
It almost looks like a page out of a book. A little bit skewed. Yep.
By the way,
yeah,
this week, a 19-cent registered cover with a single 19-cent 1938 Prexy on it sold for just under, the cover just sold for under $900 on eBay.
Single use, 19 cents.
Yes.
Okay, well.
So anybody have any 19-cent Prexy registered covers they're selling?
I'll be glad to trade this one for one of those.
But wasn't that one an improper postage rate? It was like 1 cent shy or something.
The article I read did not mention that. It was mailed from Philadelphia to Jenkintown, which is just on the edge of Philadelphia. But I did not read any. In fact, I think it said it was the proper postage, the proper rate for registered at that time.
Oh, okay. I thought it, the one I read, I thought it was like 1 cent shy of what it was supposed to be, which is probably why it went so high.
I think it was legitimate for the time period, but whatever rate or combination of rates made 19 cents did not exist for very long. And certainly probably 19-cent stamps were not common. So most 19-cent covers were probably like 15 cent and 4 cent or 10 and 9 or something.
That was obviously sometime after 1938. And so that'd be the same rate, the 19-cent rate from here, at least 1929 to 1938.
I think that was in Linz, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Well,
I believe the 17-cent Woodrow Wilson stamp, it was part of it was a late addition to the 1925 definitive series, was issued because the 17 cents was the registered fee.
Okay.
So that plus 2 cents postage would make 19 cents.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Very good. Okay. Other items for show and tell, comments? Doing good?
I have a quick question for Raj. She introduced herself last week, but could you tell us what you collect?
Hi. I actually am not collecting anything yet. I have inherited a lot of stamps. These are like starting from 1938, 37 is the oldest one I found. So these I inherited from my family, and my husband collected a few, and I'm trying to organize them and categorize them into different Europe, Asia, and North America, South America. That's what I have. I have most of Europe and most of Asia. I was able to sort out about 50% of them. Still, I have 50 more. I just created a spreadsheet to see what I have and if there is any value. So in that process, I have any questions, I'm trying to ask Paul and Charlie about them. So the values actually I'm trying to see on eBay or Connect, and I haven't found a lot of them. Only one stamp I found was $750 on eBay. That was a Europe stamp. I don't remember which one that is exactly, but that's what I'm doing right now. So once I have the different categories, what is interesting me at this stage, but probably it may change, is like the countries that have split, which are no longer existing. The old stamps, I don't know if they are of value or not yet, but those stamps are really interesting me. And the stamps with the countries which names have changed. Like Burma, I have quite a few of Burma, which are like now Myanmar. And similarly, the German Republic and German Realm. I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly. It is REALM. So I have both those stamps. So I'm trying to see what I have. So probably after that, I'll determine if I would like to collect a particular area or I want to concentrate on a particular area.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you joined the club.
Yeah.
And one day we will see you in person.
Yeah, sure. I was trying to get my grandson actually and granddaughter interested in stamps. So somehow they didn't take much interest. So once I tried that for a week or 2 weeks, then I got interested and I started doing it.
Yeah. How old are the grandchildren?
My grandson is 12 and my granddaughter is 9.
Okay. Because a lot of times the young kids, they enjoy the topical stamps. Depending on, you know, what their interests are. If they play hockey, there's a lot of hockey stamps. If they play chess, you know, football, if they like dance, if they like costumes, if they like cats. So there is some hope there.
Yeah. And
the club is generous. The club is generous to young collectors. So if you find some interest, we will try to dig up things for them and pass them along.
Sure. They are not able to come out of their Minecraft and their video games, and we are not able to get them out of it.
Yeah. That's what the competition is. We had a speaker on that early in the year, just talking about the different competitors that we have. You know, in my day it was Boy Scouts. You know, the femme fatale, maybe studying in sports, but yeah.
Sure. I have a bunch of stamps, like at least 20, 30 of them or a little more, which I'm not able to identify yet. So I will group them and send it to all of you experts. You are been doing it for so long, and I'll really appreciate your help if you can help me with.
Yeah, like with Laura's going to send me stuff, and I'll send them out to everybody and have them get back to you. Because there's what they call stamp identifiers out there, because not every country has it. There's, you know, especially earlier stamps, you know, they don't have things in English and they don't always have the country name and the different languages. It can be tricky. Yep. So good. Well, we'll look forward to that. You know, anytime you have anything that you want to share, I'm always glad to do that.
Thank you.
Other things in before we go?
Oh, I just wanted to add something. I put a link in the chat for the French air, the cover. It looks like were air fee stamps that were issued for an aviation meet at Rowan.
Yeah.
And I guess everybody could look at that if they wanted to.
Yeah, I made a screenshot of all the different messages and links, and I'm going to send those out. So thank you. Yeah, Laura. Dave, Laura, Raj. Yep. And I have a link that I'll send to Mike. Anything else on my end that I need to do? And we have some nice programs coming up. And if you have topics that you want to present to the club, I am scheduling for 2022. We're pretty good into March, some of April, and we're looking forward to it. So if you have ideas that you want to share with us with PowerPoint, or you want to have a good discussion, the idea of what to do with an inherited collection is always a good discussion, and some things we need to do. Other areas are, what do we do about our own collections? If I was to be hit by a gravel truck tonight, would my family know what to do with my stuff? Do I have a plan? And these are these things that we should be thinking about, not because of us, because we'll be gone, but the people next to us. What are they going to do with it, and where do they go? And almost kind of like a living will for your materials. When we had an attorney come in several years ago talking about it, that was one of the most important things, is to have a philatelic plan. And if really good stuff, you want to almost have a little philatelic codicil of what goes with what and so forth like that. So you know more about your stamps than your family does, most likely. Many times families are thinking, oh, this stuff is going to be worth $1 million, and it isn't, and it's the other way around. My wife never told me how much she paid for her stamps, and you realize you have some beauties there, and you have a lot of opportunities to sell those. So there's always a lot of good discussion we can have as a club, and it really makes us the strength of what we are. We're getting new members, we're growing, and it's always so good to see somebody. Charlie did say send his best. He was hoping to make it, but not when he's on call. Anything else then? Okay. I'll try to talk with Jim at the end. We get a couple minutes in. He likes to tell me about his beautiful grandkids, so I'm always willing to listen. I'm a sucker with that kind of thing. So hey, everybody, thank you very much. And David, for the presentation. It was wonderful. We thank you too for all you've done, your contributions. And remember, just have a great Halloween yourself. It's in Lancaster. We're celebrating in here, I guess, on Friday night. So thank you to everybody. Welcome to our guests, and we'll see you in a couple.
Okay.
Take care, guys. Yep.
Thank you. Take care.
Yep. Thanks,
Not at
guys.
all.
Bye-bye.